inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne, and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos on Revolution Radio, and I'm your host, Judy Carroll, Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. Our producer is Thomas Becker, also known as a Mad Painter, and our guest today is Judy Carroll, and she was born in Queensland, Australia in 1952. Her family background is Creole, South American Spanish, English, and Romany, Gypsy. She left school to pursue a career as a professional flamenco dancer, following in the footsteps of her grandmother, who was a dancer and a clairvoyant medium in the Romany tradition. Judy feels this background has helped her to assimilate the encounters she's had with Grey ETs since early childhood. 60 years of these ongoing and at times fully conscious encounters have given her a deep insight into this phenomenon, which is happening to many thousands of people worldwide. Being born into a Romany family has also given her insight into being different among fellow humans and its effect on the psyche. So let's see. Let me see what else I want to share. Full awakening about her connection to ETs came in 1983 at age 30 with a daytime encounter during which several Greys appeared to her, and she recognized them as family. She was given a massive download of information and advice regarding the mission being carried out on Earth, part she was to play in it, and further studies she needed in order to undertake this role to the best of her ability. So I'm not going to read her whole bio. It's quite lengthy. It's on aquarianradio.com, along with some graphics and pictures of Judy. So before I bring her on, I'd like to bring on Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. Hi, sweetheart. Are you there?
Yes, Judy, I collect stories about our origins, as all anthropologists tend to do. And what I find, reality of the past is like an elephant that we all grasp from different directions. And so I find they all have validity. My friend Stuart had, Squirlo had access to CIA documents. Other people had intuitions. Other people had traveled in time. We've got all these different stories, and they all have something in it. So I'm really interested in what you got and I'm looking forward to learning your story of our story.
That sounds good.
Welcome to our show. Yes, we'd like to start with you telling your story, and we'll try to let you talk for 20 minutes or so without interruption, but we get excited, so bear with us. But we'll take you through the process, and you'll take us through your story. So take it away.
Yes, Janet. Well, I actually came into this present life as what's known as a blended soul. And what this means is that my pre-birth choice, like my soul choice, before coming into this life, was to be connected into the energies of two planetary collective consciousnesses rather than just one. Before we come into birth, we actually make a whole lot of decisions with help by our spirit guides, soul family, etc., as to what planetary culture we need to be born into, what race on that planet, etc., etc. We have all these decisions that we make, and part of our pre-birth preparation is actually linking in to the energetic frequencies at these different levels. Now, mine was to actually tune in or link in to two planetary collective consciousnesses rather than the normal one. And the two that I chose to come into was the Grey Soul Collective, because I'd had a past life with them, and also the Earth Human Soul Collective because of the massive shift that's happening down here at the moment. And we decided to take it on as our mission to come down here and assist with this. So by making this decision, pre-birth decision, I'm able to consciously link into both life as an Earth human and as a Grey. So that's basically where I'm coming from.
That's really it's so interesting. It's so much like what who was it? Oh yeah, it was another New Zealand lady, Susie Hansen, had the exact same set of informations that she was a hybrid with the Grey. She had made the decision just like you said. And she was told to activate and communicate. Do you know her?
Yes,
Susie?
I do. Susie and I are good friends. Yes, she's actually coming to speak at the local UFO group here in Queensland in I think it's September or October, and she contacted me and said, "Oh, are you coming? Because we love to be able to link up and talk to each other." There's not that many of us down here, so we get a lot of energy out of just linking up and talking.
Well, it's so interesting. Wonderful. You can collaborate each other's, like she looked at she noticed all the technological devices and had her husband draw them. And I just wonder if seeing those things awakened anything in you.
Oh, yes, yeah. Susie works more from the technological angle. I work more from the spiritual angle, but there's many crossovers there. And yeah, she's a lovely lady. I recommend her books to anyone. Her one book she's written. I think she's written a second book now. I must check up on that. But her book, The Dual Soul Consciousness, is a wonderful read.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you come by
when did you look at were an
Can you
ambassador?
hear me?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can, Janet.
Okay, how did you come about this awareness that you are a dual soul?
Come again. I'll just get you to repeat that question.
How did you become aware that you're a dual soul? How did you learn that?
Yes, how I woke up to it. Well, it actually took quite a while. I made a decision to, block off my ET consciousness during my childhood because of the fact that consciousness is a very, it's a multidimensional aspect of our being. So we can decide to tune out of certain aspects until we come to a certain point in our life. Everyone does this. And the fact is there's so much fear connected to ET contact going on here at the moment, and I wanted to be able to understand this from the human perspective so that I can help others and deal with it. So I made the decision not to tune into my ET consciousness very much as a child. So I had contact, but I went through all the fear that people go through. I was very, very aware of having this sort of double thing going on. It was like there's two brains going on in my head, but I couldn't really bring through a lot of conscious understanding of it at that point. I was aware of being visited. I was aware of being taken out of my bed each night, and all these memories used to come through. And as a result, I was really, really scared. I was absolutely terrified of the dark as a child, and I had all the usual fears that many people have who are having contact with the Greys, in that I was rather scared of things like dolls and puppets, and I had a thing about eyes. They used to scare me. So I know a lot of people out there can relate to these fears. It wasn't until I got to the age of 15 when I had a fairly strong experience of being taken out of my body. After that, I started to become more accustomed to it, and then I had a very, very big contact experience at age 30. When I saw the Greys standing around my bed, and I lost all my fear then because I recognised them as family.
Wow. Okay, so this started when you were young, but you weren't conscious of it. So let's see. Tell us about the encounter you had at age 30 in 1983. Do you want to flesh that out for us?
Yeah. Yes, I had a major encounter then. It was actually in the middle of the day, in the middle of the afternoon, and I started feeling like I was coming down with the flu. So I went upstairs to lie down, and I started sort of getting the body paralysis that people talk about. I couldn't move, and there was a loud roaring sound in my ears that I've also since heard people talk about. It's like a buzzing sound. And the next minute I was aware of several Greys standing in the room, and I recognised them. For the first time I saw them and recognised them as family. And this was when I was told that I needed to start learning meditation because, as you mentioned in my biography, I had been a professional dancer, following in the footsteps of my great-grandmother, who was a dancer. And the Greys told me during this encounter experience that it was time for me to get back to work, and my mission down here was to try to bring more understanding in to try to overcome the fear that people have of ET encounters. And many people complain about communication difficulties with the Greys, so this was part of my job to try to overcome this. And so they advised me that I needed to take up meditation for them to be able to communicate with me because, of course, they are telepathic. They don't speak verbal language. So I was going to find it very hard, having been a professional dancer, very physically oriented, to be able to meditate. And so the advice they gave me was to take up Tai Chi, which I didn't even know what that was back then. I mean, Queensland, Australia, back in the early 1980s, we just weren't into those things at all. So I started doing a little bit of research and found out that Tai Chi is known as moving meditation. So, it all sort of started from there. Wow.
So you're starting to get this information.
Yeah.
You're 30 years old. So
yes.
What did you gain from meditation? So you're doing Tai Chi now.
Yes. Well, what happened?
What did that do for you?
Yes, after I had this encounter, we were living on an acreage property, and they told me that I'd be moving back into the city because I needed to come in amongst people to do the study courses that I needed to do and come back into society sort of. So the next 3 years, massive changes happened. We moved back to town, and many, many coincidences fell into place. For example, one of them was within a week we'd moved back to town, I found Tai Chi classes being offered in the local shopping centre. So I signed up for that and started studying Tai Chi. Some new people moved into the house next door, and one of them had been a meditator for 10 years, and her teacher was moving up from Tasmania. Now, I'd never meditated, and as soon as I met this teacher, something sort of clicked, and she invited me to join a closed meditation group that she was starting up. And this is very rare, the fact that I'd never meditated, to be invited into such a circle. So for the next 8 years, I was doing very, very intensive study, to become a Tai Chi instructor, which I do now. I meditated in this meditation circle for 8 years, and during that time, I learnt channeling and also automatic writing, which of course then prepared me for writing the books later on. So, a lot of preparation was being done at the time. I was also told by the Greys in that first encounter back in 1983 that I was to learn a alternative natural healing method of some sort, and a Reiki practitioner just happened to come along to learn Tai Chi off me, and he joined our meditation group, so that's how I was drawn into Reiki. So it's quite amazing. Over those years, everything just fell into place for me to be able to carry out the work I'm doing now.
Sasha. You there, Sasha?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I had to unmute my microphone, Janet.
Cool. Okay.
So, Ambassador from the Greys, what message do you bear to humanity?
Basically working with energy. That's where our future lies down here. People have to become more understanding of the fact that we're multidimensional beings. We're not just physical flesh and blood body. That's really important for people to understand. And also to become more sensitive to working with energy. And this is the reason why I was advised to learn to teach Tai Chi, and I also teach Reiki, because these practices, meditation as well, enable people to become more understanding of the fact that we are energy beings. In fact, this is what was meant when they say in the Bible, man was created in the image of God. This is what was meant. It's not that we're physical beings like God's a physical being. God isn't a physical being. God is energy, and we're also pure energy. Okay, we have an aspect of us in physical form, but there's many other aspects as well. So this is the information I'm trying to get across to people.
That's wonderful. It's very similar to, I'm trained in a Jungian tradition by Hal and Sidra Stone, and also in Tantra. And so what we do is we look at the energy. We can feel our own energy in each of our chakras, and we can also feel it in other people's with a huge degree of accuracy once you practice a bit. So you can tell if a person has their power chakra wide open and their heart chakra closed. You might do business with them, but not go on a date with them. That it's like amazing. I think energy is where it's at. That's something phenomenologically that anybody can experience.
Yes. Energy, understanding energy and acknowledging it is the key to the whole thing.
Cool.
So you have, how many books do you have? 3 books, 4 books? Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, the Zeta Message, Human by Day, Zeta by Night. So you have 3 books, right? Is that correct?
Yes. That's right.
So how did they come about? Which one was the first book?
Okay, the first book, Human by Day, Zeta by Night, and the Zeta Message, they sort of came together. What happened after I had my opening in 1983, in 1995 I had another very profound experience during a trip to the UK. I visited a sacred circle over there known as the Rollright Stones. And I just happened, and again, coincidence just plays such a huge part in all of this. I just happened to be standing in the very centre of the main circle at 12 noon on the day of the summer solstice. When I got home to Australia, I knew something weird was going on. I was feeling very strange, getting very, very profound states doing Tai Chi and Reiki and meditation. At first I thought I had jet lag, but after a couple of weeks I realised, no, there's something more going on here. The downside was going into shopping centres was really hard because I was picking up on people's energies. Anyway, a couple of weeks after, I was actually taken in astral form back to the circle I had visited, the Rollright Stones, laid down in the centre of the circle in my astral form, and a long needle with a blue crystal on the end was plunged into my third eye chakra point. Now, this hurt. So, of course, I was struggling and yelling, pull it out, but there was about quite a number of small greys holding me down. So I couldn't really do anything about it, but they pulled it out. And what it turned out to be, I woke up the next morning, I actually had a red mark on my third eye. So I knew it wasn't just a dream. Something had happened. Now, what I came to understand over the next couple of years, this really strong urge came upon me that I needed to start writing books. And gradually a memory came through that this was the reason, why I'd been trained in automatic writing in a meditation circle, but this was what the needle with the crystal was all about. This blue crystal contained a download of information on the Greys and ET, Earth-Human contact, and they wanted me to start writing books on this ET, Earth-Human contact, but from the ET's perspective rather than from the human perspective, from which most books at that time had been written. So this was the whole idea of this. It was like an acupuncture needle put into my third eye, downloading all this information. So I started writing, and one book became two. So much information came through. One book became two, and these were first published here in Australia. The first one was entitled Looking Through Eyes of Love, and the second entitled Looking Through Eyes of Wisdom. And I wrote these books in a semi-fictional format because I was really scared of coming out of the closet. There was no way I would have claimed being a blended soul or anything like that back then. So I wrote these books as semi-fiction, and they got a limited sale here in Australia. And finally, the contract with the publisher that I had them with ran out, and so I approached Granite Publishing in America with these books. They immediately took them up and republished them all in one volume as Human by Day, Zeta by Night. So that's Looking Through Eyes of Love and Looking Through Eyes of Wisdom, both put into Human by Day, Zeta by Night. Now, at the same time, while this was happening, I was actually called in to a sister family here who were undergoing very, very profound contact with the Greys. And the mother of this family, Helene Kay, and I got our heads together and decided to write another book, The Zeta Message, which is a completely non-fiction book. It's an account of my own life and also an account of what this family went through with very, very profound contact, which, by the way, confirmed a lot of my contact because their two young children were contacted by Tall Grey, and I could see amazing parallels between this teacher who was working with them and my teacher Maris. So this was the second book, The Zeta Message, which was also taken up by Granite Publishing. So these two books came out, I think it was in 2010. I'd only just got them out, and in November of 2011, I was taken up onto one of our ships, and there was a meeting going on, and they were getting people together. They wanted to discuss what to do about the hijacking that happened on planet Earth many millennia ago, and they were asking us all to put ideas forward on what we could do to assist the planet. And so, silly me, I piped up and said, I've written two books, I'll get that information out. And so someone then jumped on me, why don't you write a third book? So that was how extraterrestrial presence on Earth came to be. I was told to write a third book.
Right. So you're talking about the hijacking. Who hijacked the Earth, and what's the agenda?
Okay, it's a group that I call Reptarians. They were a group who were developed. What's important to understand, before I go any further, I'll just say there's been a number of Genesis events on planet Earth. Not just Earth humans, there were earlier Genesis events, earlier races that were created. And an early reptilian human race was created down here by the Draconians, who were one of the creator races who took part in this creation of a native human culture for planet Earth. Now, these Draconians created these beings that I refer to as Reptarians out of a biped dinosaur species. And These are the ones who are referred to as the Anunnaki. That's another name for them. They divided up into several groups, and they were all fairly aggressive. And one of these groups ended up hijacking the Earth, taking the planet over, which no off-planet group is supposed to do. And they basically continued to reincarnate down here in this form. They're the ones known as the Illuminati. They're known as the Controllers. They're known as the Cabal. They have several different names that they've been given. And as I say, the Anunnaki is another name for them. So they're the ones that we're trying to get planet Earth out of their control now.
So can they come down in humanoid form? Are they like the Queen of England and like the rumored?
Oh yes. Some of them are in more reptilian form in different dimensions of the Earth. People speak about the inner Earth, and what that is, it's okay. There are physical tunnels and passages down there, but generally the real inner Earth that we speak about is interdimensional. And so some of them are in a more reptilian form. They have been seen by people coming through the dimensions, but the majority of them are just reincarnating down here now as Earth humans. So, you can't really tell the difference.
Right. Sasha, your turn. Ask the question.
Your narrative really closely follows that my friend Stuart got from the government, that basically the Dracos were pursuing the fleeing Lyrans, who some of them settled Maldek between Mars and Jupiter, and some of them were on Mars, and the Dracos hollowed out a something that looked like a comet, but it was, and they blasted Maldek into the Kuiper belt, and the Maldekans had sheltered with the Martians. This death comet sucked off most of the atmosphere and a lot of the water from Mars, but the people were okay. They were safe inside. And this comet went to the position of Venus. Snow melted off of it. Dracos, who were inside, came to the surface and built 7 domed cities, and they constructed an artificial moon, which they put into place, and they brought their dinosaurs, that's their beef, with them, and settled Earth, first to the planet Lemuria, which had been raised as the death comet passed the Earth and sucked off most of the water vapor. And the Galactic Council of Lyrans put a bunch of the Maldekans in the Gobi. They took the Atlans and put them on Atlantis, and these guys had guns, and they started killing off the Dinos, and there was a war that took place between the Lemurians. And by now the reptilians has gone all over the planet, and this huge war was very destructive. And the Andromedans called the Council of Hatona. And in the Council of Hatona, it was decided, just as you said, Judy, that the proto-human was contributed to by 12 groups, one of which was reptilian, the other were humanoid, and they were then farmed out to the different areas of interest where people could condition them to see who could get the strongest kind of humanoid reptilian thing going. And what the reptilians contributed was our brain stems, our ability to act instinctively, to run or fight if we have to. Basically, those tales seem to be very similar to yours.
Yeah. Yes, it's quite a complex history.
Yeah, because you said that here it is, the draconians out of a bipedal dinosaur species, right? So we have this genetic manipulation and of different species throughout time, and we have a long history here. So the humans are not the first species that had landed here, but we're currently, what's going on with the current system? What do the Greys want now in this modern times? Are they still breeding with us? They're still creating a hybrid program? Are they worried about their future? And what's the current story from your perception?
Yeah, well, what people need to understand is that there is two hybrid programs going on, and there's a lot of disinformation and faking going on. There's a genuine hybrid program, which I'll talk about in a moment, which is being run by the Greys and Pleiadians and a number of others. But what's happening down here is the Reptarians are basically in charge of the planet, and very much in control of, religion, military, government, etc. And what they've done, they've set up what are known as MILABs, 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 which means military abductions. And they've actually created what Dr. Stephen Greer refers to as PLFs, Programmed Life Forms. And these have been created right down here on Earth, and have been made in the form of greys, and these are used in these fake abductions in a very negative way. And so a lot of people who've experienced what they perceive to be very nasty, negative type abductions by greys are actually these faked military abductions. The whole idea is that our lot started coming here after the atomic bombs were detonated. After it ended World War II. And this drew the attention to the fact that help was needed down here, and a lot of people on a higher level of their consciousness actually sent out a call for help. So this is the reason why there's been much more increased UFO and ET activity down here since World War II. So what the Reptarians are trying to do, they're trying to make people afraid of the real ETs who are coming here to try and break their hold that they've had over Earth humans' minds for how many millennia now. So they're also running a hybrid program and creating these super soldiers that they talk about. That's what the MILAB program is about. The men in black are hybrids who've been created by them. And there have been other negative ones created as well. People have had negative experience with so-called ET hybrids, but they're ones who've been created down here. Now, the real hybrid program, and what people need to understand is we're all actually hybrids down here. Everyone's a hybrid. But the real,
right.
Yeah, that's the thing. The real hybrids are being developed by the genuine greys and other ETs for several reasons. Firstly, a sort of a Noah's Ark program's being carried out for safety reasons, and this is being done to preserve the Earth human genome, just in case of a worst case scenario, such as humanity blowing themselves up or the planet up, or else destroying themselves some other way through disease or environmental disaster or whatever. So the genuine ETs and the greys are just about the forerunners with this, because this is work we specialise in. We're collecting and preserving a broad cross-section of genetic material from Earth, so, for safekeeping. The second reason for the genuine hybrids is to spread Earth human genetics further afield to safer environments throughout the universe. One whole Zeta Reticulan culture known as the Essasanis on Earth are human Zeta hybrids, Earth human Zeta hybrids. These ones live on planets in the Zeta star system, and they're valued members of the culture. They can take their place on any level of Zeta society. I think Bashar, the Essasani who channels through Darryl Ankar, he's one of them.
Yes.
So he has some very interesting things to say. They take their place in Zeta society as healers, teachers, scientists, whatever. The third reason, and this is the best case scenario that everyone's hoping for, is that full disclosure of the ET presence on Earth will take place, and the hybrids, many of whom are already here, will be able to come forward safely and openly declare their presence and offer their assistance in the healing of the planet. All the genuine ET people understand this desperate need for unconditional love and deeper spiritual awareness on Earth, and are more than ready to share this with our fellow human beings. So those of us who are down here expressing life on Earth as Earth humans, try as well as we can to walk our talk and set a good example. That's the bottom line.
Yes. Okay, so I'm looking at the different things that we can address that you gave me the outline. Oh, so that was number 3. So this is a prison planet, in a sense, right? This imprisonment is not physical, rather the mind and spirit, and has been created out of religions and belief systems based on ego, fear, and punishment. The instigators of the control system were much older human or older Earth human species. So this was the Anunnaki. So the Anunnaki, they appear to be humanoid in a lot of depictions, but some things are. So that was the confusion. What are the Anunnaki? What do they look like? But they can be either. Now, I've interacted with some reptilian species, but they were kind and loving to me. So just because an individual or a section of a species society can be bad or evil or unkind doesn't mean they're all bad.
That's right.
Or unkind.
Exactly. Oh, look, we all evolve, and many of them have evolved. The other thing is planet Earth is a school planet. I don't like thinking of planet Earth as a prison planet. It's a school planet. One of the best in the whole universe, because basically what our lesson down here is to learn to overcome fear. This is what the Armageddon thing is all about. It's making the free will choice between love and fear. Now, the Reptarians or the Anunnaki, they feed off fear. This is the reason why religion on Earth is so fear-oriented. True religion has to be based on love and nothing else. This is what this so-called Armageddon thing is. It's not a religious war. It's an inner battle in our own heart, between love and fear. And because we're all potentially creator beings, our time on Earth, which is a brilliant school planet for learning this, because we have to learn how to create positive rather than creating negative. That's our lesson down here. And it's a very, very hard lesson to overcome, but it's something that we need to be able to do before we're going to be let loose on the rest of the universe.
Yes.
Judy, yes, if I may, from my perspective, fear has the function, if you say what motivates the function of fear is to pay attention, just like the function of love is to make contact and dissolve the dualistic dichotomy. And so when one feels anger or one feels fear or one feels worry, instead of trying to banish those things, I find it useful to say, well, what's motivating the worry? Oh, the need to pay attention. What's motivating the anger? Oh, the need to be effectively assertive. And so I think it's really important to embrace it all.
Yes. Oh, yes, exactly. I mean, these are emotions, and I mean, being human, humans have emotions. So, yes, of course, all emotion is legitimate and needs to be acknowledged. So that's for sure. So things like fear and anger, etc., when we really look into it on an energy level, they come from an imbalance in our energy system, which, I mean, all of us are walking around with. I mean, life isn't easy down here. We do get imbalance in our energy system, which is the reason why we really do need to carry out a spiritual practice of some sort, meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, Reiki, whatever, to help to keep our energy system in balance.
Yeah, that's so right on.
Right, so we're out of balance. So another thing that happened was the concept of reincarnation, which was taught by Jesus, was intentionally removed from Christian scripture by the controller Emperor Justinian several hundred years after the crucifixion of Christ. And this was done to block humans' evolutionary process. So would you like to explain more about that?
It's a matter of energy. For people to overcome the blocks, they have to, as I was saying before, they have to take up some sort of spiritual practice and learn to practice non-attachment. It's very, very easy to get attached to our emotions. And this is another way we get blocked and trapped down here. It's a matter of overcoming that and stepping back. Yeah. Unfortunately, everything down here does tend to drag us down to lower levels. You know, you've only got to tune into the media and things like that.
So you were talking about acceptance of reincarnation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Question.
Well, it's just an interesting way to deal with attachment to either outcomes you desire or attachments to outcomes you wish to avoid, and those are the things that cause suffering. All you need to do, I believe, is to dig what you've got right now, and don't, and you've got everything you need in the here and now, and that the attachment is due to not being present fully, because when you're present fully, then you can appreciate what you've got. And when more comes, well, that's wonderful. Then it's cornucopia. If more doesn't come, you're already content because you dig what you've got. So it's really easy. All you've got to do is be present fully, which isn't easy.
We get a lot of training on that up on the ships because people are taken up for healing, and it can be fairly emotional working with some humans. And we get a lot of training in non-attachment up on the ship in that way.
So when you're on the ship, you're not as emotional as you are when you're down here being human?
Yeah. People think that the Greys don't have emotions. We do have emotion. We actually experience emotion very deeply. But because we come out of, we're not mammalian humans, we're insectoid. And so when we're in our Grey form, our facial structure doesn't allow the physical expression of emotion as does a human face. But it doesn't mean that we don't feel emotion. Greys don't have the movable lower jaw that we do down here. And in fact, this is carried over into my human body. I have had to undergo quite a bit of speech training and physiotherapy and things like that to get my lower jaw working properly. I still have a bit of trouble with it. I can't open my mouth as wide as the normal human should be able to.
Wow. So when you're on ship, are you in a Grey form?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And what is your role? Are you a healer? Or are you, what do you do? Do you fly the ships? What's your role?
I do a few things up there. I mainly do healing work, but I also do, particularly in my last life, I actually did quite a lot of scientific work, working with planetary ecosystems and adapting species to different planetary environments. As I say to people, when a species becomes extinct down here, that's not the end of them, because the off-planet people have collected DNA from all the species on Earth. So if a species becomes extinct down here, it's adapted to another planet if it can't be brought back down here to like if the environment is healed, then it can be brought back. But if it can't be, they're adapted to another planet. So nothing ever disappears completely. This is the sort of work I used to do in my past Grey life, which was absolutely fascinating. I work with plants, and I still have a big thing about working with flowers and things. But yes, I do a lot of healing work as well.
So, we're extincting many species down here, so they're actually being preserved and taken to other planets. What is the plan for the Earth? Are they just going to let us do what we do, and after we kill ourselves off, come back and terraform it again and put us back again, or what? Are we ever going to get conscious? What do you think?
Yeah.
We'll just kill them all off, and then in 500,000 years, we'll just bring it all back again. I mean, it sounds crazy, but what can we do to stop this vicious cycle? What is the purpose of life and death? Killing people, experiencing dying. These animals are all dying. They're washing up on shore. That seems to be horrendous.
It's just a natural part. No, it's actually a natural part of evolution. I mean, that's what life and death is about in all species. We evolve through the transition of death. People get very caught up. Again, death isn't taught about properly down here. It's taught in a very negative way, but it's not. All we're doing when we die, we step out of the body. What's really important for people to understand is we are not our body. We are a soul or a spirit. The body is just a vehicle. So each night we step out of it. When we dream, when we die, we step out of it permanently, leave it behind. It's just like an old car that's come to the end of its operational life, and we need a new one. So we step out of the old one and we get a new one. We get far too caught up in the physical body down here. The physical body is a very, very small component. It's the same when we're talking about the universe. The physical universe we see is a very, very small part of the whole. The majority of the universe vibrates on much higher vibrational frequencies. Most universal human races vibrate on higher frequencies. There's not that many out there who are stuck in third dimension.
Okay, so that's very interesting. So, there's humanoid species that are not in third dimensional physicality. What percentage of the universe is in third dimensional physicality?
Yeah.
I mean, approximately. I don't expect. Like, what part is Is it 50%? 10%? 1%? How many species are in this third dimensional physicality realm? Is that like a subroutine, like a matrix? That only a part of us is down there doing this 3D stuff? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, what I might do, I'll talk about what the Greys refer to as a human ladder. This is a teaching that Helene, my co-author of the Zeta Message, and I were given many, many years ago by one of our teachers. The human ladder is a term that the Greys used to explain the path or cycle of evolution, which is followed by all human-type species throughout the universe. Now, it also represents our multidimensional soul or our higher self, which spans the whole ladder. And it's comprised of what the Greys call galactic levels, but these aren't actual galaxies of any sort. They're not physical places. What they are is ascending and expanding levels of conscious awareness and awakening. Now, the average Earth human consciousness is operating on the very first rung of the ladder. So therefore, we can consciously down here access approximately 10% of our potential conscious awareness. The other 90% is hidden away on either the subconscious or superconscious level. So for an Earth human to be able to access even a small part of these deeper levels, an altered state such as hypnosis or meditation is generally required. Now, this 10% of our conscious awareness is intrinsically linked into the 10% of our active DNA. So in order for a person to access deeper levels of consciousness, more DNA needs to be activated. And this is a lot of what genuine ET contact is about. And here, when we're talking about consciousness, I'm talking about mind consciousness here, not physical brain. The brain's just a physical organ. Now, as our mind focus evolves to higher rungs of the ladder, we're able to link more consciously back into oneness, or what people refer to as God, and therefore able to perceive and interact with higher and higher vibrational frequencies of energy. So the important thing to understand is the whole universe is energy. It's nothing more, nothing less. It's all energy vibrating at infinite frequencies. And so once we become more consciously awakened, we can tap into these higher frequencies way beyond our present awareness. Just as down here we can operate in full 3D awareness. I remember one of the teachers saying there's about 1,000 other life forms at our level. So there are quite a few, but they're very, very widely dispersed. Mm-hmm.
Sasha, your turn.
Well, it's just, if I can jump back a little bit, it's this idea of people bemoaning our current situation. It seems that, from my existential perspective, we're being presented by what you're calling synchronicity, perfect challenges, that the function of our destabilization is getting the bigger picture and addressing things that need addressing. Just as in a relationship, when two people start being annoyed by each other's aspects, those very aspects are showing them the things in themselves that they haven't come to peace with. And so I think the challenges are like that. And so when we talk about the Nephilim or the Illuminati, I think what I have to do anyway is to get in touch with parts of me that can be selfish and calculating, and integrate those in a larger whole rather than to totally disown them.
Oh, look, that is so true. That is so true. As quantum physics is proving, we create our own reality. So whatever's going on around us, we are actually creating it. And what we put out is what we get back. I mean, the universal law of attraction, that's so important to understand. So if you don't like what's going on around you and the people you're coming into contact with, you've got to look within yourself to see what it is you're mirroring out. That is so true what you just said.
Cool.
So what is the role of reincarnation, and how does that help us evolve faster and become more conscious?
Well, reincarnation, the path of reincarnation is taking us back to our soul source. It's a path of coming back into contact with oneness, understanding oneness more and more clearly. That's why we're reincarnating. And each time we reincarnate, we learn, we come back to learn, we learn lessons through it, and it helps us to understand oneness, because once we start to remember past lives where we've been male, we've been female, we've been Catholic, we've been Protestant, we've been Muslim, we've been Jewish, we start to realize that, hey, you know, in our hearts we're all exactly the same. So it teaches us to respect other people and their viewpoints. And this is part of our lesson to return to the oneness of Source. That's what reincarnation is about.
So other species don't have amnesia and they don't reincarnate, or, do all species reincarnate? Are some species so long lived that they are in one form for their entire existence? So
now, all species reincarnate, and reincarnation covers the whole universe. It doesn't just cover Earth. I mean, we have life lessons on many, many different planets.
Do we simultaneously exist in many forms and many avatars? And I mean, because time is the illusion of this dimension.
Yeah.
So are we simultaneously existing?
Yeah. Yeah, we can take many, many forms.
Right. So how does one access... See, I'm a lifelong contact experiencer, so I've had many things, but I can't really explain it or teach it to other people. It just happened for me. But I've been able to access my multi-dimensional self. And like last night I was working on my other job on another planet. So a lot of experiences become aware it's a really big project and I'm having a lot of fun. Then I come back here and I do this life and I have a lot of fun. So I'm enjoying my existences, I guess is the way to put it. And so you discovered your mission, and your mission is to be a teacher and write these books, and you present at conferences, right? And how do you get the information out besides your book?
How? Sorry, I'll just get you to repeat that again.
How do you get your information out to the world besides your books? Are you
basically
conferences? Do you have a website? Yeah.
Well, through the books, through interviews like this one, and through my classes, because I teach Tai Chi, I teach Reiki, so I have quite a few people coming to me that way. It's interesting because I teach Tai Chi at a couple of senior citizen centres. So I'm starting to get this message of energy to people who are approaching their transition. So what I'm hoping is that they will carry it through to their next life and come back perhaps a little bit more open-minded. I'm quite amazed at the number of people who are open-minded, even in our older folks, but I'm hoping to just open them up a little bit more.
Are you able to teach them about the ET stuff?
Not too many of them, but some are very open to it. Yes. I seem to attract people into my energy field who are open to it.
So how do you broach the subject, or do they?
Okay, I often bring up about crop circles because they seem to be coming into the news quite a lot, and I sort of test the water. Oh, aren't these crop circles that are appearing lovely? What do you think of them? I put the question to the person.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, we're coming up on the break in about 30 to 50 minutes. Seconds. What do you want to cover in the second half? What direction you want to go?
Look, maybe we might talk about where humanity has to go in future with this technology. I wouldn't mind talking about a little bit more about being up on the ships and what sort of work I'm doing up there. That would, I think, interest people.
That sounds good. I want to know more about this Armageddon type scenario, which is
I want to know how you do psychotherapy with people with Greys who don't have the emotive reactions that you can see as easily as us Homo sapiens.
Okay, so we should be getting the music any second now.
What I do with that is I pitch to their intellects, because if they're not doing emotion, the intellect can take all kinds of things in, which then work on the rest of the subpersonalities.
All right. Amanda, are we on break now? There it is. Okay. Waiting for that music. We will be back in 5 minutes. See you in 5.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Or be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Ohio Exopolitics will be on from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A. Mark Schneider will have guests on that will discuss many important topics, including the state of the world today. However, much of the show will be dedicated to the writings of Edward Albert Meyer. Let me read a short passage from one of his writings. Love is the highest principle of creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. All of nature in its indescribable splendor is nothing but the love of creation, which is expressed visibly. The love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. Please join Mark on Ohio Exopolitics from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A.
It's It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne, and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome back to Stargate to the Cosmos. I'm your host, Judy Carroll, with Dr. Sasha, Alex Lessin, producer Thomas Becker, and our guest is Judy Carroll. Before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to that donation button on revolution.radio and make a donation, because we really could use your money. Hawk is still in the hospital, but he'll be back soon. And we don't know where we are in our fundraising, but we need your donations, so thank you very much for those who donate. And we'll find out in a couple days how we've been doing. So, Dr. Sasha, are you back?
Yes, I am. And we are continuing to get wisdom from the Zeta Greys. And it's the overall impression is it's good stuff. They care. They care about this planet. They care about us. They care about themselves. They're our friends.
Yeah. So welcome back, Judy. So you wanted to cover more about your story and what it's like up on the ship. So, it's very important for you to convey what you want our listeners to know. So I'm going to pass it back to you, and then we can ask more questions.
Yep, that sounds good. Okay. I've got a very clear memory one night. I've spoken about this on a few interviews, but we always have new listeners coming in. When I was up on the ship and walking into the clinic up there and recognising a male human who we'd had up on board a number of times. He was lying on a table and waiting for a procedure to be done on him. And as he became aware of my presence, as I sort of put my head around the corner, and a look of absolute profound horror came on his face at the sight of me. Now, I was trying really hard to communicate with him, but it's very frustrating because he'd been there on a number of occasions. We'd never hurt him, and the procedure we were about to do on him was for his own good, was not intended to hurt him. And I tried very hard to get this across, but his fear was blocking my thought waves so that my communication wasn't getting through. Now, up there, we communicate telepathically. And what people don't understand is when a human brain is in a state of fear, mind-to-mind communication just doesn't work. It could be compared to trying to listen to one radio station when your radio set's tuned into another station. And I can remember literally shouting at him telepathically, look, calm down, it's okay, I'm not going to hurt you. But I could see it just wasn't getting through. So one of the others stepped up and touched him on the head, which knocked him out because we felt really sorry for him to be so scared. They thought, okay, we better knock him out. And what the procedure involved was an implant being removed from inside his head. Now, that he had a mixed bag of contact experiences. Now, this has happened to a number of people. They're having genuine contacts, but they're also having the MyLab ones, the military abductions. And this causes a massive amount of confusion in people because one type of contact tells them the ETs are good and the other type of contact tells them they're bad and they get hurt. So the poor person doesn't know where they are. And this was what was applying with this fellow. And what the MyLab people had done, they put an implant in his mind to be able to thought control him. So our job that night was to remove this from his head. And I have a very, very clear memory of putting my fingers down inside his head. You know, we can go through the flesh. We don't have to cut. We can just go in. And breaking a connection of some sort and lifting this thing out. And I can remember saying to the other two, there were two others working with me, oh, that's good, we've got this out and he should be safe now. I can really remember saying that. And the other funny thing is, because thoughts go through your mind, I mean, up there is a grey, I'm very, very similar to how I am down here. I'm no different. And the thought went through my mind at the time, he had a very distinctive shaped beard. And I remember thinking to myself, that's funny because if I ever see you down on Earth, I'm going to remember you and recognise you. And sure enough, some years later I did. I actually came across him. Of course, I never said anything.
Did he come to a conference or something? How did you come across him?
Yeah, he was talking at conferences. Yeah. As soon as I saw him.
Okay.
Yeah. But
was he more relaxed?
Sorry?
Was he more relaxed now since you removed the conflicting?
He sort of disappeared off the scene now. So I don't know.
Oh, he's off the scene.
He's off the scene, yeah. But it was such an interesting experience, to remember. And the way I can remember the thoughts that were going through my mind as I was working on him. It was quite funny.
What do you want to say, Sash?
Oh, just, Judy, we've interviewed a lot of people that have been abducted by American military. And I'm just wondering if and they even had, very American. Are the Aussies doing the same thing? We've also heard rumors that the establishment in Western Australia has said we're not going to let the Americans boss us around anymore. Have you heard any of this sort of stuff?
No, I haven't, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least. Like I know that there's a military facility in the middle of Australia out near Uluru. One of our neighbours used to be the manager of a hotel out there, and he was saying telling us, it's very, very well known that this facility goes down many, many, many levels. We talk about the sites in America, S4 and all those, but this one in Australia is the same. And he was saying you'd drive along beside it, and there were miles and miles and miles of razor wire fencing. So, yeah, there's definitely stuff going on here too.
So I wanted to look at the conflicting...
Is there insignia on the uniforms? Have you seen any insignia on uniforms yourself? Or have any of your clients seen insignia that would indicate what military these people who are doing abductions for the military, what service do they belong to? Who pays their salary?
Yeah, no, I've never come across any of them in my contacts at all. Susie Hansen and I were actually speaking about this because there's quite a lot of information coming out on the net that there are military groups who are working with ETs, and some military people talk about them, their memories of working with ETs. But neither Susie or I can ever remember seeing any military presence up on the ships where we work. There are Earth humans working there, or hybrids anyway, but they're not connected to the military.
Thank you. That's fascinating.
Now, I wanted to look at the conflicting implants. I have a bunch of implants. Mine are very old. I got them, I'm 65, so I received a lot of them when I was very young, like 4 years old.
Yes.
Do they need to be replaced? Are they guaranteed for life? Mine behind my right ear will ache. And I was maybe they're trying to contact me. What's that mean when your implant aches?
Yeah.
Contact,
Look, it could be. Most of the implants are put in. Again, there's non-genuine implants and genuine implants. The one that we removed from the man was obviously a non-genuine one. The ones that they put in down here are used to trap people. So they're more physical, and I think a lot of these ones that have been removed by surgeons, they're from down here, they're more physical, whereas the ones that we put in vibrate on a higher energy frequency. The reasons why we put them in is to monitor the person's energy system. They're actually placed at the chakra points for healing and balancing purposes. And in this way, they work a little bit like acupuncture and Reiki. And they're also used to monitor the effects of pollution and emotional states, etc., on our bodies. They can also be used to raise our energy frequency. And this enables us to get onto the ships more easily. They're almost like a boarding pass for going up on the ship. The higher frequencies actually make us more creative in the artistic sense too. So that's how those ones work. They're also used to assist communication between down here and up there. And these are especially for those of us who are ETs experiencing a life down here as Earth humans. The implants are sort of our lifeline and our telephone line to home. I actually think I've got one in my right ear too, because I actually have slight deafness in that ear to physical stuff down here.
I'm very deaf in my right ear. Can we tell them to fix it? I'd like my hearing back. And I go to the doctor, and I know that's why I've always been partially deaf, but now as I'm aging, it's like it's really bad and drives my husband crazy because I can't hear half of what he's saying. But anyway, I'm going to put in a request to repair this because it's affecting my hearing. But I was told that I went to a lady and she started saying, "You have the implants, and here's what," and she correlated what I knew, right? But I didn't ask her about aliens, and she just started telling me. But she was saying that some of them are to help us protect us from diseases. Like the AIDS epidemic was really, back when this happened, was getting out of control. And so she said one of the implants was to help protect me against AIDS, because, I was in between marriages and then potentially sexually active. So we're going to protect you against diseases, major diseases like AIDS. Is that part of the list? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes huge sense.
I sometimes say it again. Go ahead. Okay. You there? Anyway, so I get downloads a lot.
Right,
and,
yes.
Some of it I understand right away. Some of it is like, well, you'll get that when it's time, when it's not time yet.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Some of them stay with you for years and they just drop a little bit at a time.
Right. And I'm aware they don't want to overwhelm me. They don't want to frighten me. Even the reptilian, he came back years later. I was writing my book, and he just came to me as I was writing about him. And he asked he apologized, and he said, I'm so sorry that I frightened you. He used to come when I was a little girl. And so we had like a forgiveness ceremony and an appreciation of one another. So, and then I was at the UFO Congress, and the Grey, so this was a real Grey. He was sentient, he was conscious. And he said, yes, we have the kind of like Data. He explained, well, Data on Star Trek, humans make their droids to look like them. They don't look like C-3PO, they look like Data, right? So we have some Grey androids, and they look like us, but you can tell, like you said, by the energy, you can tell that they have a soul or if they're soulless, right?
Yes.
And so he was explaining that now I don't think it's all Greys, but he said his faction, whatever that was, they were withdrawing from the Earth Project. He wanted to say goodbye. He had been my Grey, my primary Grey. There were other Greys with me, but he was like my Grey guide. Like I have a guide that's Grey, and he said, I wanted to say goodbye. And he said, I too want to apologize if I've ever frightened you. It was never my intention. And he said that they were leaving some of their, because they cared about their droids, right? Their Grey droids. And he said, we're leaving them behind, but they're going to keep doing some things for a while, but they're just going to stop because they're not getting maintained anymore. They won't be getting maintenance anymore. And they'll just, one day just stop functioning. So anyway, that was about 7-8 years ago. I had that communication in the hotel. And he came in over my husband sleeping in bed, but Sasha never woke up. So it's very interesting how they can do all this stuff, and your partner or people in the room, they won't wake up for anything. They knock them out. No awakening them. They're out. But I have a relationship with them. So how is it that I have all these positive experiences? I think you said about the law of attraction in action. And many of my guests, and I work with clients, and most of them have positive, and some of them a mixture. But some of them, it's all dark. What do you do with people that just have predominantly dark experiences? I mean, we're working with them, but I just wonder if there's something we're missing. Because they're struggling. They're struggling. And I think most of it's my labs. But don't they usually take them after they've had a regular experience with ETs? Don't the my labs often come in, those my labs people, and say, we want to know what was going on? I've had that happen a couple times, but not like everybody else. They're really having a hard time. What advice do you have for those people? Anybody hear me? Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, what would you say to the MyLabs people that are getting a lot of MyLabs abductions?
Yes. There is quite a lot of it going on. People don't realize how much is going on, actually.
Okay, well, I wanted to go over some of your questions. What's the difference between Greys and Zetas?
Okay, this is a big question people bring up. The Zetas are actually just a species of Grey. It's a little bit like you could compare to planet Earth. We're all Earth humans, but some are Americans and some are English and some are Australian. It's the same thing with the Greys. The Greys covers all insectoid type humans, and the Zeta reticulans are one race of insectoid humans. So, and the blue-grey Arcturians are another. So there's a number of different species within the Grey culture. That's basically sums it up. So the Zetas are greys.
The greys are Zetas are greys. Yeah.
Yeah, the greys are just the whole culture of insectoid humans. So the Zetas are greys, but there are other sorts of greys as well. So all Zetas are greys, but not all greys are Zetas.
Right.
It's interesting. Stuart Swerdlow, using the CIA's documents, said that Apis was one of the first planets in a Lyran group that the Dracos hit, and the people from Apis were bombarded. They went underground for a long time. Finally, they went out and became spacefaring, and they lost the ability to reproduce biologically and a lot of other things that they later wanted to get back, but that they before they became totally skyfaring, they actually had been a Illyrian species. I don't know what you do with that, but that's at least what the CIA documents say.
Yeah. Yes.
The other thing I wanted to... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, there is quite a lot of information on that out there. That rings true.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other thing I'm really curious about, given I'm a shrink, is how did this lifestyle of being contacted as you were affect you with when you're a kid, with your in a household you lived with, as an adult with the adults you live with, and if you have kids, how did all this affect them? What was happening to you?
Yes, it's quite interesting. My parents were very open, but see, I wasn't actually consciously aware that I was a blended soul ET as a child. But at the same time, I had an awful lot of trouble fitting into Earth's human life. I had trouble with, consuming food, going to the bathroom, all that sort of stuff just felt so foreign to me. And going to school, I went through a lot of anxiety as a child, going into that sort of atmosphere with the teachers and things. I was actually educated in a Catholic convent, and I appreciate that because of the fact that the Greys and most other ETs are higher up the human ladder. We have a very close connection with oneness, source, God, whatever you want to call. And so I quite enjoyed the fact that I had a religious upbringing, in a convent school. I appreciated that, and it's helped me to understand so that I can now do a lot of bringing in the energy side of religion. I'll do a lot of teaching on that. But yes, as a child, it wasn't really easy because there was a lot of anxiety involved trying to fit in down here. And my parents, I was very, very careful in choosing my parents. They were very, very understanding people. So no problem there. I have one brother who has read my books, but he's just not into the stuff at all. So he just teases me about it, but he's real sweet. He's fine. I'm very careful about who I speak to about it. I have never had children myself. As a Grey, I found it too hard to, the idea of reproducing that way. That's not the way we reproduce, so I couldn't bring myself to that. But at the same time, I have a Grey friend who works with the hybrid children up on the ship, and she is a mum. So some of us have chosen motherhood, parenthood down here. I'm careful about who I speak to about this stuff. I don't just talk about it to anyone. I'm very, very careful because I know that a lot of people just don't accept it and wouldn't feel comfortable with it. So I basically live two lives. I really have to say that. I live two lives. Some people who know me wouldn't have a clue about this with me. I just live a very, very normal Earth human life. What makes it easier is that I can choose whether I'm tuning into the Grey consciousness or the Earth human one, so the Grey one doesn't dominate down here. When I'm down here as an Earth human, I'm purely an Earth human, and I really appreciate that. I love it.
Wow.
Nice.
Well, from the perspective of Jungian psychology, being able to identify with two distinct personalities it gives you a way broader perspective. It's like a blessing that you have dual perspective. Just when I learned Spanish, I could think in a different way than I did in Germanic English.
Yeah. Yes, it gives you a much broader perspective. I really appreciate the fact that I can sort of see things from two angles. It gets a bit frustrating down here because so many Earth humans are just so caught up in the physical side. And I just feel like shaking them sometimes and saying, look, wake up. There's so much more out there. But, they are where they are.
So much more comes up, and I have the same kind of thing. Who do you say what to? Here in Hawaii, they were going to put up this 30-meter telescope that was supposed to supplant the Hubble, and it was going to be on top of a mountain that some of the Hawaiians were saying is sacred to them, and they don't want this telescope there. And I was tempted to speak up. I said, why on earth are you denying the Hawaiians if they want to love the mountain, which is a way of loving Earth? Celebrate them, give them something, love them, because we have better telescopes. We have them on Iapis. We have a telescope. We have telescopes on Mars. We have telescopes in space. Tell the truth, and you start and then start honoring the people here, including our minorities. And I'd say in your country, honor your Aborigines, for heaven's sakes.
Oh, look, exactly. We've had issues with that here as well, and it's a real shame. Something that is lovely, people have probably heard of Ayers Rock, the big rock in the centre of Australia. And all the land surrounding it was returned to the Aboriginal people who were originally from that area, and the name was changed from Ayers Rock back to Uluru, which is the traditional tribal name for it. And the national park that it's situated in, the name Katajuta is given to it, which is the traditional name. And I actually went out there in 2013, and they do honour the Aboriginal tradition out there wonderfully. Because the thing is Uluru is like your mountain in Hawaii. It's very, very sacred to the Aboriginals. And it's very, very disrespectful for people to climb it. And up until quite recently, people were allowed to climb it. Now they're starting to finally put their foot down and dissuade people from doing this because, for one thing, it's dangerous. It's a very, very steep, very high rock, and people died in the attempt. But at the same time, it's so disrespectful. It'd be like somebody walking into a Christian church and sitting down in front of the altar and pulling out a bottle of beer in their picnic hamper, It's people can't seem to get their heads around that for the Aboriginal people, for people climbing Uluru is just as respectful as that.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, Christians would get upset if someone did that in a Christian church, So it's the same thing. We've got to respect others.
Oh.
So I want to get back to some of the questions. So you talk about the Greys and controllers. Oh, wait. No, I'm going to go back to what the one before. The Greys are a creator race.
Yeah.
Are there other creator races? And who are they? And we're talking about the creators of just the Earth beings, or are they a creator race in the cosmos?
Oh, look, just in general, I refer to them as the Grey Guardians sometimes. They're a very ancient race. They've been around for billions, if not trillions of years. At least some of the Grey cultures have been. The Greys can be looked upon as cosmic scientists in that they work with the energy of consciousness to create and develop new planetary species throughout the universe. And as I mentioned before, they also help species to adapt to changing planetary energies. They work with planetary environments and ecosystems to encourage biodiversity. And I remember doing this work in other lives. I know that we speak about creating and scientists, and using those two words in one sentence, some people might get upset, but it's important that there is a link between science and creation in the religious sense. It's important for people to understand that, and the link is energy. So the Greys are energy workers, as are other creator beings. There are many, many different creator races through the cosmos because, remember, most of the human races are much, much older than Earth-plane humans. Earth humanity is a very, very young culture. But you take some of those human races from higher up on the human ladder, and they're basically what people down here think of as angels. You know, they're working at very, very high energy frequencies. So you get the ones like the Zeta Reticulans, like the Pleiadians, like the Lyrans. You know, we mentioned the Lyrans before, and Romidans. You know, they're all very, very highly evolved races who are creator races. We're all heading that way, but they're there doing it already. This is why planet Earth is such a good school planet to teach people to create positively rather than negatively, because everyone's going to be released out into the universe one of these days as creator races. So we have to know how to create in a positive way, which we do with our thought.
So who and what are the controllers? And there's a group that opposes the Greys. So what's going on?
Yes, the controllers are that reptilian race who were created down here by the Draconians, the ones who hijacked the planet. So they're the ones who've hijacked the planet, and this is the reason why Earth plane humanity is still on the bottom level of the ladder, or part of the reason why. It's a school planet, but everything has a reason behind it, and the people of Earth have been held back. One of the Grey teachers likened it once to the universe being like a river, a free-flowing river, and planet Earth being like as if it's been shunted off into a siding or a little stagnant pool beside the river. And this is why the genuine ETs are coming here now, to get us back into the flow again. So the controllers are trying to stop Earth humanity moving forward. The Greys and the other ETs are trying to help people to move and evolve.
Are we the only species that goes unconscious? We go through the veil of forgetfulness and don't remember who we were before we came here?
Just about. I'm sure there would have to be others out there who have been blocked as well, but Earth plane humanity is the only one that I'm really aware of. So, it doesn't happen that often. Okay. But again, as I said, everything has a reason. So. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, in terms of the Nephilim, or the people that are running things on this planet right now, the person that they're allied with, Prince Marduk, I guess the Christians call him Satan, basically has said, look, it's all part of divine plan. We've had this really challenging time. It was to prepare us for the intellectually for the technology that we need to rise above polluting our environment and warfare. And you can see that the only solution is use of artificial intelligence so that we stop destroying ourselves and our planet. And I want to make amends, and so do the other Anunnaki. We realize we created you, and we are responsible for your survival and evolution. I hope he's telling the truth.
Yes, that makes sense. That does make sense. Everything, one of the Grey teachers said to us once that there are no accidents in the universe. Everything happens for a reason. Whether it appears as positive or negative, even those things that appear as negative, there's still a reason behind them. It's assisting people to grow. That's the bottom line. If we have no challenges, we never grow on a soul level. That's, the thing. We have to have challenges to grow. It's like if a child is wrapped up in cotton wool and never given any challenges. You could see that happening a bit with children these days. They don't get the thick skin that we need to have as an adult. They're too sheltered, too comfortable. They need the challenges to enable them to mature.
And what it's what makes the challenges humans overact is the reptilian brain stem. Combine that with sexual dimorphism, the propensity toward violence by testosterone, chemically jacked up dudes who can kill other people is part of the problem, and so it's somehow being able to tame our inner reptilian, I think, and put it in the service of the larger ecology. The solution might be found.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure, which is what evolution is all about.
What about this Armageddon agenda in religion? And, our revelations in the Bible talks about this apocalypse scenario, and, then there's the rapture in the Bible, and I've always thought that was part of ETs taking us up. But what's your concept on that?
Well, the thing that people need to understand is that the Bible's been translated and mistranslated over, thousands of years. In my book, Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, I've presented the Aramaic version of the Lord's Prayer. And if people read that, it's entirely different to the Lord's Prayer that we're taught in church. It's very, very different. All this.
Can you say it for us?
Yeah, look, you'll have to give me a minute to go and get it because I can't remember it off by heart.
I would love to hear it, yes.
Yep, look, just give me a moment and I'll go and get it and I'll come back on.
Oh, wonderful,
okay.
wonderful. So listen, this is going to be a real treat because I've heard this before from people that study with the Jesuits. It's really different than what those people recite.
It is. Just give me a moment and I'll go and get it.
Sure.
Okay. Go for it. Okay. That'll be interesting. So we're waiting for this reading. So why isn't it, okay, this is before it was changed. When was it changed? You're aware when it was changed, honey?
Aramaic is already it was already gone. It was already being done way before. Did Abraham speak Aramaic? Yes, I think so.
Okay, so this is back in the original tongue.
It probably was Akkadian, actually. Abraham came from Ur and from Haran with his father Terah. Basically, he spoke Akkadian. That's the language they spoke in Ur.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, perfect time.
Okay. Now, this is the version of the Lord's Prayer that Jesus would have given, and it's been translated by Dale Allen Hoffman. Now, what I might do, I'll read the version, the line. I'll do it line by line, reading what we know today, and then I'll read the old line. So, okay, it starts off, Our Father who art in heaven. Now, the old version is, or the original version, our one absolute eternal being, of which we are born forth from the realm of the all and the only. Hallowed be thy name. I am empty within the ecstasy of your presence and the purity of the vibration of your name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Empower my creative expansion through your emergence from the unseen realms as I realize our life and will as one on the manifest earth as in the unmanifest heavenly realms. Give us this day our daily bread. Provide the nourishment of authentic insight and realization through me now and in each present moment. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Release the echoes of my hidden past as I cancel all of my concerns with others. Do not let me lose my true self in forgetfulness, but wholly release me from the errors of my perception. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. For the undivided holiness is the absolute, the all and the only, and the power of our eternal radiance from cosmic gathering to cosmic gathering, from age to age, from moment to moment, from now to now. May these pure intentions be rooted, fertile earth centre from which all my actions flow. Amen. That certainly sums up universal truths, doesn't it?
Wow. That sounds like it sounds like it came right from Melchizedek.
Yes. And so
beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And so, hearing that, you realise how badly mistranslated the Bible has been. I mean, the Bible is full of truth, but it's been misinterpreted so badly by so many, and so much fear being brought in rather than love.
Yeah, it's become an anti-feminist track. It's become a way of oppressing women, according to my colleague Chris Hart.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm reading a wonderful book at the moment by a woman by the name of Claire Hartsong, and the name of the book is Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. And wow, it really tells the story as it is, or as it was.
Let me write that down. Hold on.
Yes.
Yeah. Page. Say that again, please. Let me write that down. It's called what? Anna,
Grandmother of Jesus.
Uh-huh.
And the author is Claire, Clair, Hartsong.
Now, so Mary apparently was a virgin birth. So is this Mary's mother?
Well, both of them were produced through what the terminology they use is light conception, which is basically virgin birth. The Catholic Church speaks about the Immaculate Conception of Our Lady, of Mary. So she was conceived through a light conception as well, as was Jesus, her son.
I think it's just like genetic manipulation, artificial insemination. What do you think really was going on there with those? Now that we know all the technologies of how you can... For older women that were unable to conceive, there's a lot of them. I found a book where it lists about 20 of them. These so-called quote-unquote virgin births with older women having difficulty conceiving. There's intervention by quote-unquote God, and they have these miracle children.
Yes.
So who is Anna? What's the book saying who Anna is? What's her story?
Yeah. Yes.
What's Anna's story?
What? Sorry.
You're reading Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. What's her story? What makes her so special?
Well, she belonged to what they refer to as the Essene community. And it was a whole tradition with them. A number of women went through these light conceptions. I'm only about halfway through the book at the moment, so, I don't know what the ending is. But yes, it was quite a normal occurrence with them back then. And of course, this is happening again now with a lot of these, hybrid births, women being taken up on the ships and impregnated that way. So, it's something that's happening again.
I'm interested in often when you get things like a light, they're talking about some kind of a laser intervention, something that we could relate to these days. But I can say that from the records that Enki, one of their scientists left, is he liked to do it the old-fashioned way, and if it's just parthenogenesis, then Jesus would be a girl. So there had to be something about the germ cell that united with the ova to make him a boy.
Yeah. See, some of the ETs produce this way. The higher evolved greys can reproduce this way, and others. It's like how the wording that they use in this book, and it's really, really good. They talk about etheric DNA being involved rather than physical DNA. So, yeah. And of course, back then, actually in my book, Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, are included a couple of paintings by Italian artists going back to about the 15th or 16th century. One of them is the Annunciation of the Virgin, and there's an ET ship depicted up in the sky with a beam of light coming down onto Mary's head. And there's another one, the same thing. I think it's a baptism of Jesus, or one of them back then. And again, an ET ship is depicted. I've got these in my book.
Wow,
right.
Wonderful.
I've seen those. Yes.
We're gonna get
yeah, I've seen those. Wow. So speaking of Jesus, who is Jesus in the ET perspective?
Oh, very, very, very highly evolved. Yeah, very highly evolved soul from right up the top of the human ladder, basically. Very, very highly evolved light being.
Do they have a reason? Do they have a story around why he comes here? Does he go to other planets and do the same thing? Is he always male? Does he come female? Is he bad? Is he in a reincarnation cycle? What do we know about?
Well, he wouldn't. He wouldn't be reincarnating now because he's right up there. He wouldn't have any need to. But a special, if it's a special situation for him to come down here at that time, to start off or try to kickstart the evolutionary process that had been so badly blocked up until that point.
Yeah,
every so often these
teachers. The story of Hermes. Hermes was the son of Enki, and he came back in through the birth canal, so he was able to send his consciousness down into a human fetus and be born and experience life. But once he was gone, he went back to his, original avatar form that was lying in stasis. So there's that story.
Yeah.
So what is the ET's view of God? Who is God from the ET perspective?
Okay, this is interesting. Many ET cultures, including the Greys, refer to God as source or oneness. You've heard me use that term several times today. All the higher evolved ETs approach life from a spiritual rather than a religious perspective. Now, the difference is spirituality is a state of consciousness. It's a more expanded conscious awareness which can only be attained over the span of many lives. Religion is more to do with dogma. This part of evolution in the human kingdom is not exclusive to planet Earth, but it spans the whole universe. Higher evolved ETs are able to consciously access these higher energy frequencies because of their expanded conscious awareness. So they don't have to depend upon religious faith and belief in the existence of a supreme energy source. They're able to tap into and perceive it in full conscious awareness. They're consciously aware that all of us are an intrinsic part of this supreme source at soul level, and there's no separation in the greater reality. And this is why they refer to God as oneness. We're all part of this same God consciousness, and it permeates the whole universe on multidimensional levels. And talking about, death and dying, the path of evolution, that's what reincarnation's about. The path of evolution we're following will eventually lead us to a fully conscious awareness and a melding back into this oneness of source energy. But, of course, this takes a span of many lives. Reincarnation is an intrinsic part of this journey, and it involves a gradual refining and leavening process of our energy frequency. Could be looked upon as a path of ascension. I just find it interesting because this was part of the controller reptarian thing on Earth, was taking the understanding of reincarnation out of church doctrine, and yet it's such a very, very important thing for people to understand.
Right. So what can we do? One question is, that's on your chart here, or questions, how can people free themselves from the influence of the controllers?
Well, basically understanding that you have the free will to choose between love and fear. That's the first step, understanding that. The second step is understanding that we create our own reality. So the more we can focus on love and positivity, the better our reality will be. And the more we can free ourselves of the controller's influence, which is designed to keep us down in fear on a low frequency. Love is the highest frequency, fear is the lowest vibrational frequency, so it's all to do with energy. It's really important for people to understand that we create our own reality. Quantum physics is proving this. So it's starting to come out more and more now.
So is there a way to concretize that and put that into steps that you had that poor man that was traumatized. You couldn't reach him through telepathy. I wonder if you could speak English at that time, if you could have just said, stop it. He might have responded through a verbal command, or if you were. I'm just trying to think. What would you do, Sasha, if you had somebody with in extreme panic, screaming?
Frank, okay, you really want to know, I'm a different kind of a therapist. I would say scream more, go crank your panic up, let it resonate through all the times in this lifetime and other in your childhood when you felt that kind of I would crank it up because I'm a therapist. I wouldn't advise anybody else except a trained therapist to do this, though.
That's why we stepped in and knocked him out.
Just knock him out. He's screaming. Yeah, I know. It's just an opposite. Maybe the Greys can learn something. Okay, scream louder. I don't know. There's going to be something. Just put him in a room where we let to hear him, let him scream, and he'll eventually stop screaming.
I'll remember that next time.
Did you ever get to...
Maybe we could ramp him up by pulling... Maybe we could ramp him up by pulling faces at him or something.
It just depends on how much of his consciousness is there. If a person is fearful and unable to go into the sub-self that's panicked, you can sometimes model it and say, I see a part of you is really afraid of me, and imagine I have a gray suit on, and in your mind peel it off and see who's under there. Use the whole. There's a lot of things that trained therapists can do to help a person resolve this. You don't have to give up just because a person's making noise. At least in my world.
I was watching a YouTube, and Claire Foy, who played Elizabeth in The Crown, was on with Ellen, and Ellen likes to scare people, right? And so this Claire's just talking about a story, and then this person jumps out right in Claire's faces and runs away, and she screams, and then Ellen says, well, now you experience that, you'll know how you respond when someone jumps out at you. So she does it. It's kind of therapeutic to and Claire saying, oh my God, I had a heart attack. My heart is going so fast. So there's something about experiencing that and moving past it and getting over it. And it's like, okay, now you did that. Who are we? Oh, okay. Now I can hear you. I don't know. I'm just suggesting that to the Greys, next time you have these people that are in fear, that you can work with their fear.
What we do in a somatic-based psychotherapy, when somebody is manifesting physical symptoms, we say crank it up, so that if they say I'm out of breath, you say, well, restrict your breath even more. I can't breathe at all. Hold your breath even more. And if you do that, I'm telling you, I know that most therapists don't know how to operate this way, but I've been doing it for thousands of people. And if a person knows how to dissociate from their operating ego, then and reintegrate after, you have to prepare a person to be able to do this. But you can actually, there's nothing that you can't access, and everything in the human condition is available to all of us, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's like Whitney Strieber. When he was describing one of his books, I don't know which one, but he said, I knew there was an alien in my living room, and I was in this cabin in upstate New York, and so I would go to the top of the stairs, and I was going to go down and face this alien that was sitting in my living room every night. So he would run back up. Eventually he got, over a series of weeks, he got all the way down, and he went and he sat opposite this alien, and they just meditated together. I thought it was a beautiful story about facing your fears. So I've come to that point, and I don't know how I did it, but I can have a Grey at the foot of my bed, and I'll just start having a conversation with them, or another alien. So somehow I've conquered my fear. And they keep testing me. They keep coming, and I just go. One time, like about last year, I woke up, and the sun was coming up, and I turned around, and there's this, 5-foot-tall owl standing beside my bed. And I just went, oh, really? And then it shaked into the Grey, and we had a conversation. So, but they don't want to scare you. But I guess once you get over that, you're able to finally hear what they're trying to say telepathically. That's what you're saying, right? They can get past the fear. So, Oh, we're down to the last 2 minutes. What would you like to say, Judy?
Okay, well, if people want to go in for some more information, I'll just give out our website is ufogreyinfo.com, and that's spelled with an E-G-R-E-Y. I'll just say that again. ufogreyinfo.com is our website. And a lovely message that came through. I'd like to leave everyone with a lovely message. I once asked one of the Grey teachers to sum up what all the teachings are about and what people should be aiming for. And his answer was to understand our universe in terms of oneness, to understand our universe in terms of energy, and to understand ourselves in terms of oneness and energy, thus enabling us to choose love over fear.
And are you going to be presenting at any conferences or webinars?
No, we don't. Anywhere? No, we don't have that many conferences here in Australia. So no, I'm only getting that message across through interviews like this and through the books.
And can you once again mention the names of your books?
Yes.
A little bit.
Our first books are The Zeta Message and Human by Day, Zeta by Night. And my last book is The Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, Lessons in History.
That sounds great. And they can get those on Amazon, or do they have to order them through your website?
Yes, all on Amazon and all through Kindle as well. People can get through Kindle if they want the ebook, and they can get the hard copy through Amazon. People in Australia can get them from me here.
And we're out of time. Thank you so much, Judy. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, the Mad Painter, and thank you, my husband, Dr. Sasha.
Thank you. Aloha.
And aloha.
Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
Narco-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! Just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Oscar's freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The blood is filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear It's a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting the danger, unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite, surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing, in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with the pen.